Dawn arrives like a slow, deliberate breath over a basin of water and reed. Mist lifts from the lake, and the first light finds hands moving with quiet purpose. A single kernel of maize is pressed into dark, damp soil, an ordinary gesture that will shape food, ritual, and identity for generations. That kernel is small and unremarkable, but what it becomes will be the thread that ties fields to festivals, kitchens to codices, and people to place. This is the Valley of Mexico, a landscape of lakes, marshes, and shallow shores where people learned to turn water into farmland and scarcity into abundance. They called themselves Mexica. Later histories would call them Aztec. Names shift with time and language, but daily practice, planting, weaving, trading, teaching, creates a culture that endures. Imagine a city threaded by canals instead of streets, where causeways rise like stone bridges across water and plazas open into markets that hum with life. Imagine gardens built on narrow strips of earth, Chinampas, so fertile they fed tens of thousands. Imagine artisans shaping clay and obsidian, scribes painting codices by candlelight, and children learning songs and stories that hold a people together. These are not romantic fantasies. They are the architecture of daily life, the practical choices that sustained a complex society. Listen to the textures of routine, the soft slap of oars against a canal, the murmur of bargaining voices in a market, the rhythmic tapping of a potter's tool. These sounds are the grammar of daily life. They tell us priorities more clearly than a list of dates ever could. Through them, we begin to understand what mattered: food security, craft mastery, social bonds, and a worldview that read meaning into the heavens as much as into the soil. By the end of these 5 minutes, you will carry a handful of images: the floating garden, the reed boat, the market stall, the codex page, and a child learning a song. These images will be our anchors as we move next into origin stories and migration, the myths and memories that shaped identity and led people to found a city on water. For now, watch the kernels sink into the soil, feel the cool of the lake, and listen to the market waking up. The ordinary work of a single morning opens a window onto a civilization built from small, deliberate acts. The story of the Mexica begins not with a single date, but with a long, living journey, a movement that shaped identity, memory, and purpose. Long before a city rose from the lake, people told of a homeland called Aztlan, a remembered origin that functioned less as a literal map and more as a shared charter of belonging. That memory, carried in song, ritual, and painted pages, organized social memory and gave meaning to migration. It provided a narrative frame: who we are, where we came from, and why we keep moving until a place answers. Migration in Mesoamerica was rarely a single march. It was a sequence of choices made across generations, a pattern of stops and starts shaped by environment, alliance, trade, and ritual. Groups moved for many reasons: drought or flood, pressure from neighbors, the lure of new trade routes, or the pull of sacred signs. Rivers and lakes acted as highways. Mountain passes marked routes. Valleys offered resources and vantage. The Mexica arrived in the Valley of Mexico as one among several Nahua peoples. Their founding image, an eagle perched on a cactus growing from a rock, became the emblem that justified settling on a marshy island in the lake. Whether that sign was read literally or as a powerful metaphor matters less than the social force it produced, a reason to stop wandering and to build. Arrival required adaptation. The basin was not empty. It had been shaped by earlier farmers, fishers, and craftsmen who had long managed water and soil. The Mexica learned from neighbors, adopted local techniques, and braided their own practices into the existing fabric. Identity formed in this exchange. Language, ritual, and craft interwove until a distinct social tapestry emerged. Local units called Calpulli organized landholding, labor, and ritual obligations, providing the social scaffolding that allowed small kin groups to scale into dense neighborhoods. These units distributed plots, coordinated irrigation, and maintained communal temples. They were the institutions that turned scattered households into a functioning urban society. Founding a city on water demanded both practical innovations and social agreements. Incremental acts, building platforms, reclaiming marsh, creating Chinampas, and erecting houses and workshops, accumulated into urban form. Each addition required labor, coordination, and a shared sense of purpose. Leaders and priests used ceremonies to mark land and consecrate public works. Calendars and omens helped choose auspicious days for construction and planting. These ritual practices were social technologies. They synchronized labor, coordinated large projects, and created predictable rhythms for collective action. In other words, ritual was a way to organize time and people so that thousands could act together with confidence. Record-keeping mattered. Codices, painted pictorial records, preserved genealogies, tribute lists, land boundaries, and ritual sequences. In a world without printing, these portable archives allowed leaders to point to recorded claims and families to remember obligations, making continuity legible across generations. Codices functioned as legal and mnemonic tools. They recorded who owed what, who owned which plot, and which ceremonies belonged to which lineage. They were practical instruments of governance as much as they were repositories of memory. Trade and diplomacy smoothed the path from arrival to settlement. Markets connected highland obsidian to lowland cotton and coastal shells. Marriage alliances and negotiated borders helped secure resources and reduce conflict. The Valley of Mexico was a crossroads of exchange. The Mexica's ability to navigate these networks, to offer goods, services, and negotiated ties, was as decisive in establishing their place as any single military action. Merchants carried not only goods, but information, prices, fashions, and political news. Diplomatic marriages and tribute agreements created webs of obligation that could be mobilized in times of need. Migration left material traces. Pottery styles, textile patterns, and architectural details reveal layers of influence and adaptation. Archaeology reads these objects as conversations between past and present. Some household goods persisted across centuries, while other forms evolved as new techniques and tastes spread. These material traces show continuity rather than abrupt replacement. They tell of people who adapted, borrowed, and innovated. Origin myths like Aztlan continued to be retold in ceremonies and painted on codices, becoming civic memory that bound people to place and to one another. Social structure itself was shaped by movement. Newcomers often arrived as kin groups or clans that over time formed neighborhoods and Calpulli. Within these units, people learned trades, married, and raised children who inherited both land and social roles. The Calpulli organized labor for irrigation and construction, distributed seed and tools, and maintained communal shrines. They were the practical institutions that turned migration into settlement and settlement into urban life. Environmental knowledge guided decisions. People read water levels, soil types, and seasonal winds. They knew where reeds held soil best, which slopes shed water, and which microclimates favored particular crops. This local expertise made the basin legible and manageable. When lake levels rose or fell, communities adapted planting schedules, rebuilt borders, and shifted plots. Such flexibility was essential in a landscape of shifting water and weather. Memory and narrative continued to matter long after settlement. The myth of Aztlan and the sign of the eagle were retold in public ceremonies, taught to children, and painted on codices. These stories became civic memory that justified the city's existence and explained its relationship to the landscape. Memory and material practice together created a durable identity. A people who remembered a journey and who built a home on water through craft and cooperation. Migration, then, is not a single event, but a process of learning, negotiating, and inventing. The Mexica did not arrive fully formed. They became who they were through contact, choice, and craft. Their city was the product of many hands and many decisions, of ritual calendars and practical engineering, of trade ties and local knowledge. In the next chapter, we will step into the city they built, Tenochtitlan, and watch how those accumulated choices shaped streets, markets, and daily routines. Dawn touches the lake again, but now the light falls on stone as well as water. The Mexica have stopped moving. They have chosen a place, and from that choice rises a city unlike any other in the world. Tenochtitlan does not begin with a single plan or a single moment of inspiration. It begins the way all cities do, with hands, with tools, with agreements made between neighbors, and with the quiet confidence that a home can be built even on water. From a distance, the city seems to float. Causeways stretch across the lake like deliberate strokes of stone, linking island to shore. Canoes move through canals that cut between districts, carrying food, firewood, and news. The water is not an obstacle, it is the framework. Every street is a channel, every neighborhood a cluster of homes shaped by the lake's rhythm. Walk closer, and you see how many decisions lie beneath the surface. Platforms were raised one basket of soil at a time. Marsh was reclaimed through patience and cooperation. Chinampas, long, narrow gardens anchored by reeds, extend like green fingers from the city's edges, feeding tens of thousands with astonishing reliability. These gardens are not accidents of nature. They are engineered landscapes, tuned to water levels, seasons, and the knowledge passed down through generations. Neighborhoods form the city's social backbone. Each Calpulli maintains its own shrines, workshops, and shared courtyards. Families live side by side, bound by obligation and mutual support. In one courtyard, a potter shapes clay. In another, a weaver prepares cotton thread. In another, a stone carver chips obsidian into blades that will travel far beyond the basin. These crafts are not isolated tasks. They are the heartbeat of urban life, the skills that sustain markets, households, and ritual. Markets give the city its pulse. Tlatelolco hums with voices long before the sun reaches its height. Here, obsidian from the highlands meets cotton from the lowlands. Salt from distant coasts sits beside beans grown in Chinampas only a short canoe ride away. People come not only to trade goods, but to exchange information. Prices, alliances, rumors, and decisions that ripple outward across the region. In these stalls, you can hear the city thinking. Ritual shapes time. Calendars guide planting, festivals, and public works. Ceremonies mark transitions, the start of a season, the consecration of a new platform, the blessing of a canal. These rituals are not spectacles performed for distant gods. They are social technologies that synchronize thousands of hands. They create shared rhythms so that a city of this scale can act with unity and purpose. Children learn by watching. They absorb songs, stories, and skills in the spaces between work and ritual. A child helping in a garden learns not only how to plant maize, but how to read the lake's subtle changes. A child listening to elders learns not only a myth, but a worldview that ties land, water, and community together. Through them, the city's memory becomes durable. By midday, Tenochtitlan is fully awake. Canoes glide through canals. Workshops echo with rhythmic tapping. Markets swell with movement. The city breathes in patterns shaped by centuries of migration, adaptation, and invention. Every stone, every reed, every garden bed carries the imprint of choices made long before the city took its final form. Tenochtitlan is not a miracle. It is the result of accumulated decisions, practical engineering, ritual coordination, trade ties, and local knowledge woven together until water became architecture and routine became civilization. Move deeper into the city, and the patterns become clearer. Tenochtitlan is not a single mass of buildings, but a constellation of neighborhoods, each shaped by the people who live and work within it. Every Calpulli has its own character, a rhythm set by the crafts practiced there, the shrines maintained, and the obligations shared among families. Some districts wake early with the sound of weaving looms. Others stir with the tapping of stone tools or the soft scrape of reed mats being repaired. Homes cluster around courtyards where daily life unfolds. A courtyard is more than a domestic space. It is a workshop, a classroom, and a meeting ground. Here, elders teach younger generations how to shape clay, twist fiber, or read the subtle cues of the lake. Here, neighbors gather to plan shared tasks, repairing a canal edge, preparing for a festival, or organizing labor for a public work. Cooperation is not an abstract ideal. It is the practical foundation of urban life. Walk a little farther and you see how these neighborhoods connect. Narrow paths lead to wider avenues, and those avenues open toward canals that serve as arteries of movement. Canoes glide past homes and workshops, carrying goods from one district to another. The city feels alive not because of noise or spectacle, but because every part contributes to a larger rhythm: work, exchange, ritual, rest. Even the architecture reflects this balance. Houses rise on platforms built to withstand shifting water levels. Walls are shaped from adobe and stone, sturdy yet adaptable. Shrines stand at corners where families leave offerings, small gestures that tie daily labor to cycles of meaning. Nothing here is accidental. Every structure, every path, every garden bed is the result of choices made by people who understood their environment intimately. By mid-morning, the city's energy gathers toward its center. Traders prepare goods, artisans finish pieces for sale, and families ready themselves for the walk to the market. The city is not divided between work and life. The two flow together. Craft supports ritual. Ritual supports community, and community supports the city itself. Tenochtitlan grows not through grand events, but through thousands of small, deliberate acts repeated every day. By late morning, the city gathers its energy toward the market. Tlatelolco is more than a place to buy and sell. It is the center of gravity for the entire basin. As you approach, the sound rises like a tide. The murmur of bargaining voices, the soft thud of goods being set down, the splash of canoes arriving with fresh produce. The market is a living map of the region. Every stall tells a story of distance, labor, and exchange. Here, obsidian blades from the highlands lie beside cotton cloth woven in warmer valleys. Dried fish from distant coasts sits next to beans grown in Chinampas only a short canoe ride away. Salt, feathers, pottery, herbs, pigments. Each object carries the imprint of a landscape and the hands that shaped it. Trade is not simply economic, it is social. People come to learn news, negotiate alliances, and read the shifting patterns of power and opportunity. The market teaches you how interconnected the city is. A potter's work depends on a trader who brings clay from a particular shore. A weaver relies on cotton grown far beyond the lake. A cook preparing a household meal draws on dozens of hands: farmers, fishers, merchants, and artisans, each contributing to the rhythm of daily life. In Tenochtitlan, no one stands alone. Every craft, every trade, every exchange reinforces the city's cohesion. Even the organization of the market reflects careful thought. Goods are arranged by type, overseen by officials who maintain order and resolve disputes. Weighing stones ensure fairness. Announcers call out rules and prices. This structure allows thousands of people to move through the space with confidence, knowing that the system protects both buyer and seller. It is a choreography of trust. As midday approaches, the market reaches its peak. Canoes continue to arrive, workshops send their finished goods, and families gather what they need for the day. The air is thick with movement, color, and purpose. This is the heartbeat of Tenochtitlan, a place where the city thinks, trades, remembers, and adapts. Through its stalls and voices, you can feel the pulse of an entire civilization. As the sun climbs higher, the city shifts from the bustle of trade to the rhythm of coordination. Tenochtitlan does not run on chance. It runs on time, measured, marked, and understood through ritual. Calendars guide the city's pulse, telling farmers when to plant, artisans when to prepare offerings, and communities when to gather for public works. These calendars are not abstract charts. They are living tools that synchronize thousands of hands. Ceremonies mark the turning points of the year. Some are small, held in neighborhood shrines where families offer food or flowers. Others unfold in larger plazas, where priests lead chants that echo against stone walls and across the water. These rituals do more than honor deities. They organize society. They tell people when to begin a project, when to rest, and when to celebrate. In a city built on water, where cooperation is essential, ritual becomes a form of engineering, a way to align effort and expectation. You can see this coordination in the movement of people. A group of workers gathers at a canal edge to reinforce a platform before the rainy season. Another group prepares a garden bed for the next cycle of maize. Families clean courtyards and repair tools, knowing that certain days are set aside for maintenance and preparation. The city breathes in patterns shaped by the sky as much as by the soil. Priests play a central role in this choreography. They read the movement of stars, track the cycles of crops, and interpret signs that guide collective action. Their work is not distant or mysterious, it is practical. They help choose auspicious days for planting, construction, and ceremony, ensuring that large projects begin with unity and confidence. Through them, time becomes a shared resource. By early afternoon, the city feels balanced, work distributed, tasks understood, and rhythms aligned. Ritual does not interrupt daily life, it shapes it. It gives structure to the city's ambitions and continuity to its memory. In Tenochtitlan, time is not just measured. It is lived, woven into every gesture, every task, every shared moment. As afternoon settles over the city, another layer of order becomes visible: the quiet, steady work of governance. Tenochtitlan is vast, but it does not drift. It is held together by agreements, obligations, and systems that make daily life predictable. Tribute arrives from surrounding towns, carried by canoe or on foot, each delivery recorded and redistributed with care. Public works are planned months in advance, coordinated across neighborhoods so that canals remain clear, platforms remain stable, and gardens remain fertile. This governance is not distant or abstract. It lives in the routines of ordinary people. A group of workers repairs a canal wall because their Calpulli is responsible for that stretch of water. A family prepares offerings for a shrine that marks their lineage's role in maintaining a nearby plaza. Officials walk through the market to ensure fairness, settling disputes with weighing stones and calm authority. These acts are small, but together they create a city where thousands can live and work without chaos. You can see the city's structure in how people move. Messengers carry information between districts, ensuring that decisions made in one part of the city ripple outward smoothly. Leaders meet with priests to choose days for construction or ceremony, aligning practical needs with ritual rhythms. Tribute collectors track obligations not to enforce dominance, but to maintain balance. A flow of goods and labor that keeps the city functioning. Even the architecture reflects this order. Public buildings rise on firm platforms, their walls decorated with symbols that remind people of shared responsibilities. Storage rooms hold maize, tools, and materials for communal projects. Workshops dedicated to public works hum with activity, producing the items needed to maintain the city's infrastructure. Governance is not a separate sphere. It is woven into the fabric of daily life. By mid-afternoon, the city feels steady and assured. Tasks are understood, obligations met, and decisions carried out with quiet efficiency. Tenochtitlan thrives because its people know their roles and trust the systems that guide them. In a city built on water, stability comes not from force, but from coordination, from the shared belief that order is a collective achievement. As the afternoon deepens, the city's attention turns toward its youngest members. In Tenochtitlan, childhood is not a separate world. It is woven directly into the fabric of daily life. Children move through courtyards, workshops, and gardens with a sense of belonging, absorbing skills and stories through observation and participation. Learning happens in motion, in the rhythm of hands shaping clay, in the cadence of songs sung during work, in the quiet explanations offered by elders as they prepare tools or tend to shrines. A child helping in a Chinampa learns more than technique. They learn how to read the lake's subtle changes, the way water shifts with wind, the way soil feels when it is ready for planting, the way reeds respond to rising levels. These lessons are not formal, they are lived. Knowledge passes from one generation to the next through shared tasks, through gestures repeated across centuries. In workshops, children watch artisans transform raw materials into objects of beauty and utility. They see how obsidian flakes under careful pressure, how cotton thread becomes cloth, how pigments mix into colors that carry meaning. Each craft teaches patience, precision, and respect for the materials that sustain the city. These skills are not simply economic, they are cultural. They shape identity and connect families to the wider networks of trade and ritual. Stories guide learning as much as tools do. Elders tell tales that explain why certain days matter, why certain offerings are made, why the lake must be treated with care. These stories are not distant myths. They are frameworks for understanding the world. Through them, children learn how time is measured, how community is organized, and how the city's memory is preserved. Even play reflects the city's structure. Children race along paths, paddle small canoes near the shore, or imitate the movements of workers they admire. Their games echo the rhythms of adult life, preparing them for roles they will one day inherit. In Tenochtitlan, childhood is a bridge, a space where curiosity meets responsibility, where the future of the city is shaped quietly and continuously. By late afternoon, the city feels full of continuity. Adults work, children learn, and the patterns of life flow smoothly from one generation to the next. This is how Tenochtitlan endures. Through the steady transmission of knowledge, through shared routines, and through the belief that every child carries a piece of the city's future. As evening approaches, the city shifts once more. The heat softens, shadows lengthen across the canals, and Tenochtitlan settles into a slower, more reflective rhythm. Canoes glide back toward neighborhoods, their hulls cutting gentle ripples across the water. Workshops quiet as tools are set aside, and the sounds of labor give way to voices carrying across courtyards and plazas. The city does not stop. It changes tempo. In the markets, the last exchanges take place. Traders pack their goods, families gather what they need for supper, and officials make final rounds to ensure order before the stalls close. The hum of commerce fades, replaced by the softer sounds of preparation, grinding maize, washing tools, arranging offerings for the small rituals that mark the transition from day to night. Along the canals, the movement of water becomes more noticeable. Evening light reflects off the surface, turning the city's waterways into ribbons of gold and blue. People walk home along narrow paths, carrying baskets of food or bundles of fiber. Children trail behind, still full of energy, their laughter echoing between walls and across water. These small moments, a shared smile, a quiet conversation, a canoe gliding past, reveal the city's humanity more clearly than any grand structure. Ritual returns as the day closes. Families gather at household shrines, offering food, flowers, or a whispered prayer. In larger plazas, small groups assemble to mark the passing of time, lighting torches that flicker against stone. These gestures are simple, but they bind the city together. They remind people of their place within a larger rhythm, a rhythm shaped by the lake, the sky, and the shared work of thousands. The architecture itself seems to respond to the changing light. Walls glow softly, platforms cast long shadows, and the city's edges blur into the water. From a distance, Tenochtitlan appears almost suspended between day and night, between land and lake. This is when the city feels most alive, not in moments of spectacle, but in the quiet transitions that reveal how deeply people understand their environment. By the time the sun dips behind the western hills, The city has entered its evening pulse. Canoes are tied, courtyards fill with conversation, and the sounds of daily life settle into a gentle murmur. Tenochtitlan breathes with the lake, its rhythm shaped by water, work, and the steady continuity of community. In these hours, you can feel the city's heart, not loud, not dramatic, but steady and enduring. Night gathers slowly over the lake. The last light fades from the causeways, and the city settles into a quieter rhythm. Torches flicker along paths, casting warm reflections across the water. Canoes rest at their moorings. Families finish their evening meals, voices softening as the day's work gives way to rest. Tenochtitlan does not sleep all at once. It drifts gently into darkness, neighborhood by neighborhood, courtyard by courtyard. In these hours, the city reveals its deepest truth. It is not defined by its size or its monuments, but by the countless decisions that shaped it. Decisions made by farmers tending Chinampas, artisans shaping tools, traders navigating markets, priests marking time, and families passing knowledge from one generation to the next. Every platform, every canal, every garden bed is the result of cooperation and continuity. The city stands because people believed in the work required to sustain it. From a distance, Tenochtitlan appears almost unreal, an island of stone and life rising from the water, glowing softly under the night sky. But its strength comes from ordinary acts repeated across centuries: planting, building, teaching, remembering. These acts turned a marshy island into a thriving metropolis, a place where water became architecture and routine became civilization. As the city settles into silence, you can feel the weight of its history, not as a distant legend, but as a lived experience shaped by thousands of hands. The Mexica built their home through ingenuity, cooperation, and a deep understanding of the landscape that sustained them. Their choices shaped streets, markets, and daily routines. Their memory shaped identity. Their labor shaped the city that rose from the lake. This is Tenochtitlan, a city born from migration, sustained by craft, organized by ritual, and held together by community. A city where every gesture, from planting a kernel of maize to guiding a canoe through a canal, carried meaning. A city that reminds us that civilizations are built not by spectacle, but by the steady intelligence of everyday life. And as night settles fully over the water, the city breathes once more, quiet, enduring, and alive with the memory of all who shaped it.